Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hang out with these nerds.
Ted.
Nerdarchist Ryan.
And today we're going to be doing a flip through and kind of first look of Mutants and Masterminds Deluxe Heroes Handbook.
If you want to jump down in the description below, you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So right here we have the Deluxe Heroes Handbook, and we are going to be flipping through. We played Mutants and Masterminds for quite some time. We played most of our gaming in 2nd edition, but this is actually the 3rd edition of Mutants and Masterminds, which they made some changes when they got the license from DC Comics to do a Mutants and Masterminds, but in the DC universe. You know, I really enjoyed the art. The Deluxe Handbook is basically, they took the same rules from the DC Handbook universe and they boiled it down to a generic Mutants and Masterminds universe. Essentially, they took out all the DC stuff.
Right.
So it was the perfect time for them to upgrade the edition.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, like, even Matt Colville's brought this up, how, like, character stats in Dungeons and Dragons, especially from 3rd edition on, like, they have these numbers, like a 15 strength, 16 strength, or dex, or whatever. But really, you only care about the modifier after you look at the cross-reference table. So this system, if I'm not mistaken, just uses rank, which is a -1, a 0, a +1, +2, and so on and so on. Because with superheroes, like, you don't have that legacy of the Dungeons and Dragons, like, stat numbers. You just have the bonuses, the modifiers that these characters have.
So there was the stat block that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And look, some of the art is very, like, kind of anime-ish and comic bookish. Like what I love, one of the things they do with the archetypes is they're clearly like, this is said character from the comic books, right? But
not quite.
We're gonna make some twists. We're gonna make some some changes. So, like, you had the character who was the mimic, over here, and, like, he's clearly the guy from Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Super Skrull.
Here's what this is. Like, this is Transformers versus the GoBot version brand, the Walmart version of the thing, the generic. So, like, there's a
powerhouse, a green, large, strong guy.
And basically, what I'm flipping through right now, we're looking at the archetypes, right? Yeah. These aren't specific superheroes, but these are kind of like superheroes you could make.
Right. Or modify or whatever. Like, I've done a thing where I took essentially somebody who wasn't quite the greatest speedster and a character that had a bit of a techno gadgeteer and kind of hybrid those two things. So he wasn't the best at doing both things, but he had this sort of interesting combination of being very fast at what he did and having some gadgets to help facilitate that.
Right.
And he also ran an IT company called In a Flash.
We've done at least one other video about Mutants and Masterminds, like, kind of like an overview. I think it's important to note the kind of like the genesis of Mutants and Masterminds, which is it came out of the OGL D20 era of gaming.
Right. The D20 Renaissance, if you will.
Right, or some people call it the glut.
Right.
But either way you look at it, and it's actually one of the gems, in my opinion, from that era. And so, if you're familiar with the D20 games, 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, then you're going to be very familiar with a lot of the way this game works. So there's a lot of things in there that are familiar to you. But there's going to be a lot of things that are different, too. This system is classless. You don't have character classes.
Everything is a point-buy system, and the game master, your storyteller, he sets a point pool for you to make your character with, and then you go in and you make your character based off of those points. All right, well, I want to make a dude that's all about fire. All right, well, I can go in and I can make fire-based abilities that are going to give me everything that I want.
Yeah, it's called a power level. You have a PL, and then that sets the points for what it's going to. How many points you have to work with to build your character?
So your typical superhero game starts at a power level 10, which if I remember the points correctly, that's 150 points for you to build your character. And you can be like, all right, I'm making a stat junkie, or I'm making a guy that's all about powers or feats or skills, and it really.
The game is also effect based, and what that means is it doesn't really matter what the power is called. It's just a matter, or how, it's just the mechanic in the game, right? You get to describe it however you want. So what I mean by effect based is you might have a damage effect. So how that damage happens, it doesn't actually matter. It could be, it could be bludgeoning damage, piercing damage, fire damage, psychic damage. Could be magic damage. It just doesn't really matter. You kind of like define how it works.
You pick what that is,
and whether you want to do it at melee or ranged is gonna determine its point cost. If you're doing it at range, it costs more points, and then you have the ability to apply other modifier type things onto it. Is it area of effect? Does it come with some kind of strength or affecting certain weaknesses and that kind of stuff? And all of these little nitpicky details allows the point value to rise and fall when you build this power.
Right, and I mean, even to that effect, you can build into it that there's limiting factors of like, is it a tech device that has a battery cell or something like that can get drained, or you could get disarmed of the thing that you use for it. Kind of think of Spider-Man and his web shooter abilities when he didn't actually have them organically happen.
Right.
Like Spider-Man is limited by his cartridges that he has as far as that goes.
Is it legitimately limited? Can you only perform it so many times a day, week, month? That kind of situation also is within the set rules as well.
Yeah, and damage is handled differently in the system. You don't really have hit points, right? So you basically you take damage, and there's like effects that happen to you, and you become a less effective combatant, and your abilities are hindered.
You have what a toughness score is, and anytime someone does damage to you, that damage is, you make a toughness check versus that DC, and depending upon how much if you fail that check, by how much you fail determines what legitimately happens to you. And if you fail by enough, you're knocked out.
You can get KO'd. Yep.
If
It's tiered.
It's tiered.
Yeah.
If you fail by just a little bit, that the minimal effect is you take a -1 to your toughness score for all further checks until you've had time to rest up, so to speak.
Yeah, so essentially, every time combat happens and you get hit and would take damage, it becomes basically an opposed roll.
Right.
And also, like your power level sets your caps on how high something can be, but at the same time, you have the ability to offset them. So
It's a swing scale.
yes, every ability has an opposing ability that goes along with it. So you can increase or decrease one of them.
Yeah, so like you've got your to hit and damage are on a swing scale. So you can be at power level 10, you can be medium right across the board. I have a +10 to hit and I do 10 damage, or you could be like, all right, I don't hit very often, but when I hit like a truck. So I got a +0 to hit and 20 to damage. And your AC and toughness are on the same swing scale.
The game also has skills and feats, just like a lot of the other third edition games do.
Correct.
I guess like we said, like the differences between third edition and second edition is they got rid of the stats was one of the things. They changed. They made them sound more like superhero game than a D&D game as well.
No.
Like stamina instead of constitution.
Right. Now, I will say that, while at its core, Mutants and Masterminds is a superhero game, the system is actually versatile enough that you can play a variety of types of games using this set of rules. I know I myself, for a while, ran a game at a power level 6 doing essentially a game set in the Harry Dresden universe, the Dresden Files universe, which I'm certain you guys have heard us talking about that before. Really awesome book series.
And we've also we've done a medieval fantasy just using this because it's cool because it lets you create any character you can think of that happens to fit in that sort of world. So I made a character that was like a genie who got depowered, so he could do some things that were fantastic, but he was also kind of limited in things he could do. And essentially, he was just like a fantastical take on what a gadgeteer would be. So, so there's lots of versatility in the system in that regard.
But as usual, the link will be in the description below. You guys can check it out. If you're already playing Mutants and Masterminds, let us know what you think of the game. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can also check us out over on Instagram.
Or you can check out the sweet swag over at nerdhockey.com in the store.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.